Hello everyone, welcome to Disorganized Play. I am your lovely host, Tom Lommel. I am back from a wonderful weekend. What did I do this weekend? I did a show Saturday night. Why do I feel like I did something else on Saturday? All right. Obviously, no one tunes in for my wonderful and scintillating recaps of what I did this weekend. So let's move on with the true purpose of the show. Every Wednesday, I run a game right here on Saving Throw Show of Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. Every Tuesday, I sit down with all of you and prep this game and try and make some intelligent choices about what should happen next. Got a twinge in my neck. That was zoinks. And then on Thursday, I come back and tell you how it all went wrong. So, that was something else. Wow. All right. Oh, yes, I went to the Muppet Show on Friday night. That was interesting. I had a great time. I wasn't necessarily expecting to have a great time. I'd never been to the Hollywood Bowl. That was super fun. Saturday, I went to the Museum of Ice Cream with my wife, which was an interesting art installation / experience, and is not an actual museum. And yesterday, I just sort of bummed around. Did I do anything fun yesterday? Couldn't tell you. Yesterday was Monday. Jesus Christ. Okay, so yesterday I had rehearsal for my improv show. That's the buzz. The bowl show was interesting in that on the TV screens you had the regular Muppet experience where the frame was cut off and there were Muppets and it was all entertaining and fun. And then when you looked down at the live stage, you saw the puppeteers in their black shrouds and their black suits doing all of the moving and all the tricks and levers and everything like that. There was really a very minimal effort to cover all of that up. And yet, I thought that was a fine and interesting choice. Like I like the fact that there was the theatricality was exposed and you actually got to appreciate the magic of puppetry for what it is as opposed to some clever camera angles and editing, right? So all right, welcome everyone. Let's talk about where we are first, right? So we have finished White Plume Mountain. It is over, done with. We have explored 85% of it. There's probably a few rooms left. Have to kick Grav out, right? Yes, already. It's a prep show. So we have explored 80 to 85% of White Plume Mountain. There's a few side corridors that they didn't go down. Who cares? It's not that big of a deal. And we have come to the point where all of that is wrapped up. They have gotten Wave. They have gotten Black Razor. And now it's time to move on ostensibly to the mission which they were sent here for, which was to find a way to free Tack's sister from this book that they have stumbled upon, where she is imprisoned inside. It's like a field guide to birds of the Forgotten Realms, and she's trapped. She's trapped inside through some sort of magical ritual. It's not quite clear. There was a scene earlier in the arc of this adventure where someone ate a magical golden apple and found themselves trapped within the within the book, and so there's also this thing of like one goes in, one comes out. There's this idea that the prison is full, or it has some sort of weird property where you put somebody in and somebody has to come out, right? So that's their main mission. There's a few other things that they have inflicted, you know. So Amy has freed her voices, whatever that means, and Gaurav has brought his father back from the dead, whatever that means. I don't think we will necessarily deal with these things this session. Hard to know, right? Hard to know. I mean, they could decide not to aggressively pursue the book and then just, well, we're going to go back to town. Then we're going to punt a little bit, right? That'll be some improvisation. Or at least not something I'm going to put a ton of time and effort into plotting, because I don't think that's where they're going next. Dangerous assumption, but I don't think that's where they're going next. So, let's talk a little bit about what we have on today's agenda. Mermaid Dreams. Sounds poetic. Prophecies and Payoffs. It's not as poetic, right? Prophecies and Payoffs and poetry. And finally, the Book of Thorns, right? The Book of Thorns. It has been established that the Book of Thorns is the dungeon. So we're going to talk a little bit about that today as well. And I haven't made up my mind. I haven't made any concrete thoughts about how the prison is going to work. Like, I have some ideas about how it does work. That sort of, some of it has been hinted at, if not outright established. Obviously, there's this apple thing, and there is the there's Black Razor is the key, the warden's key, and so being the warden of the prison must mean something as well. Okay, those are essentially most of the facts that we've established. We can talk through what's been made canon and what is still just a lot of kind of fuzzy speculation, right? But those are our topics today. So, without any further ado, let us dive into the magic and the mystery. So, Mermaid Dreams, what is this all about? Last session, we put Wave sort of through a process that's unclear. Havana's character, Avril, was subsumed or possessed by this persona, this creature, this being called Ava, who is the avatar of Nasharla, whatever you want to call her, who is apparently this kind of like goddess of the waves, or this sea goddess type of greater being. And it was indicated that, you know, Ava is there to make room, to make ready the way for Nasharla to return. That, you know, is pretty heavy-handed, and that, you know, Avril was somehow the avatar or embodiment or vessel for this sort of divine effort that's underway or going to take place. So, I mean, that was very heavy-handed. It was very convenient to explain why Avril wasn't going to go adventuring along, but it was, you know, it's got to be temporary. She's coming back this week, and so how does that play out, right? Like, how do we now have to? It's incumbent upon me as the DM to sit down and put some thought into, okay, how do I explain to her what happened? How do I portray for her what her point of view of the experience was? Because clearly it's probably different than how the party experienced it. And then, is there any sort of meaning, choice, stakes, implication for her return back to her normal self, right? Is she changed at all? Does she have the opportunity to change? That sort of thing, right? So I think, you know, we have an opportunity to do some world building here, right? We can explain maybe Avril gains a greater understanding of who Shasharla is and what her goals are. Maybe I think so. Let's back up. The cheapest and easiest way out is wakes up, amnesia, I have no idea what happened, you guys tell me what happened, right? It's very simple. It's not something I would recommend because the advantage to it is you don't have to create any new information out in game, right? Within the game world. I just, oh, you don't remember anything, and the players can fill her character in on however she wants it to play. You know, they whatever happened, and she has to go, well, I don't know. One thing about that is it's lazy, which is not a huge knock, right? We got enough going on this week that, you know, creating a whole extra set of lore and whatnot might be a lot. But it also raises the threat level of the weapon, right? It makes Wave this malicious or at least potentially harmful implement where they could be in the middle of anything, it could just take her over, and that's the end of it, right? Like, she's going to be gone, and then Ava's going to do whatever she wants with Avril's body. And even though Ava seems to, you know, have some respect for her, I would never damage the vessel, or I can't make the way ready, or whatever it is, I think if I were the player, I would see that as an opportunity for the DM to screw with my character at an inconvenient moment. And it's a little more power than I would necessarily want to give to the DM without having some sort of understanding or ground rules put together around, okay, don't worry, I'm not going to like screw you in the middle of a combat or make you leave the party and go off on this major side quest when you want to continue adventuring with the party or whatever, right? So, you know, if I had that sort of conversation with Havana, then I could probably, you know, get away with just hand waving it and go, you don't remember what happened, and oh well, that's the way it is. I don't think that's... It's expedient. I don't think it's the best option, and I don't think it's the most satisfying option. So I think the most satisfying option is give her this, like, maybe 2 or 3 paragraph description of, like, here's what happens to you. And then either, as BSB Care says, like, maybe there's an RP scene that they kind of negotiate something. But the players wouldn't necessarily hear that, right? Or I think maybe kind of like the happy compromise between here's a page of exposition for you to read and then you wake up, versus we're going to have this long one-on-one role-playing scene that the other members of the party can't be involved in because they're not inside your head. The compromise there is we give her 2 or 3 paragraphs of here's what happens, and then give her a choice or have a short kind of role-playing scene that, or just something like, you know, like a piece of paper, check yes, check no, you tell me your answer. But it gives her some choice of, like, okay, you know, it allows you in the game to put some parameters around what the goals and aspirations of this creature are and how it intends to intervene. So you're going to want to know what it wants, and you're going to want to know how it's going to use your body as a vessel. And then the third thing would be, here's what I'm going to give you in return. Here's the advantage. Here's my reward for letting you help me, you know, for letting me inhabit you in this way that furthers my goals, right? So in return, I'll give you some powers or whatever, what have you, right? I mean, it's sure, it definitely is. There's definitely a consent issue at play here, and she wasn't there. The player wasn't there for the last session, so it wasn't as much of an issue. It's still a pretty heavy-handed GM move, right? I'm not going to lie that I pulled a pretty rough GM move, or pretty... In Dungeon World, we call that's a hard move, right? Your character is possessed by some sort of avatar of a deity, all right, that's the DM inflicting some pretty heavy circumstances on my character without me being around. Now she's back. Um, the player's going to be back, so that's why we have to give her the opportunity. Like, oh, if you don't like this storyline, pull the ripcord, bail out. It's done. It's over with, and no big deal. Like, walk away from it. Like, I'm the I won't care. There's no harmful consequences to you. Da 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 da. So if you don't want to play a part in the storyline, then we'll kill it. We'll clip it off. If you are interested in exploring this, then you have to actively agree to that, right? So that's one of the things that I think we need to address in this session is I need to come up with some sort of dreamscape kind of description of what happens to her while she's being possessed and meditating. And to be honest, like, this Ava creature didn't like possess her and then go off and commit a bunch of murders. This Ava creature like possessed her, said, I'm taking over your friend, and oh, by the way, I'm going to meditate now for X number of hours. And that's that, right? So that could, we haven't done anything so heavy-handed where it's like, oh, you've been taken over and now you've been framed for murder, you're being blackmailed because of something that this possessing entity went off and did while you weren't there. So what kind of creature is Ava? That's not. I didn't bother statting her up. I didn't bother giving her I didn't pull a thing out of the book. It's an aspect of a divine being, right? She's an aspect of a divine being. So that's not. It's not something where we can chisel away at it from a game perspective of oh, well, if you took her into an anti-magic field, you could force the entity out of her body, etc. Also, I think along these lines, I don't know that this is it has the potential to be an interesting and significant plot thread. It's been introduced very late in this adventure arc. So it almost would need to springboard us into another adventure arc. It's almost the beginning of something else. But I also think it was a convenient excuse for Avril to not be adventuring with the party. So if it turns out to be kind of oh, I'm not interested in this, let's just drop it, that's fine with me, right? It was more of it's an interesting potential idea for further complications and something that they could investigate further, but it's not anything that I have a heavy stake in. It's not something that I think is foreshadowing something. So giving the player and or the PC the option to bail out on this whole possession thing, I think is absolutely fine, 100% fine with me, and it should be anyhow. But I have no vested interest in this thing. So if she wants to bail, she can bail. If we can offer something interesting that she decides she wants to pursue, great. So that's where it is. I think I need to come up with this kind of this mermaid dream kind of montage description, here's what happens to you, here's what's on offer, here are the goals and aims of this creature. And I also think it needs to be clear, well, this is not the party's new mission, right? This is something that kind of was going to take place in the background, right? So it's also unclear, is in terms of is Ava an angel or a demon or something like that. I see Shasharla as almost also sort of an agent of chaos, right? Sort of similar to Umberly, but maybe not as chaotic evil, maybe a little more chaotic neutral. So it's hard for me to say angel or demon. I don't think Ava is evil, like a demon is evil, but I don't think I think she's an agent of Nasharla, of this goddess, and that's it in terms of it's not so much good and evil on the spectrum as it is kind of wild cleansing flow of wave upon wave upon wave on the beach. You know, I see. I really do see it as inspiration, like similar to Umberly, where it's the power, the fluid power of water to provide destruction, um, but not necessarily. I mean, in a chaotic way, not in a chaotic evil way, if that makes sense, right? So, I don't think that this is a story arc that will play out after the current arc, unless I come up with something really juicy and something that I really really love, that ties into something that I really love. I don't think so. I don't think so. All right, so that's one of the things that's incumbent upon us to pay out, right? Is Mermaid Dreams. We need to give Avril a chance to either embrace this situation, which we've inflicted upon her character, or to just cut it off, set it aside, push it away, and be done with it. That's fine, that's cool. All right. Yeah, I mean, we can ask the player, how do you feel about this? I mean, Havana is a very busy person, so having that kind of conversation more than 15 minutes before the game starts could be tricky, right? But I can email her about it. Let's see what happens. All right. Our next topic for the day is prophecies and payoffs. So we've got a couple things in play, right? And I just wanted to kind of like go back and revisit I wanted to go back and revisit some of the prophecies and larger, like fantastical events that have taken place, right? So, the two most obvious ones that were not prophecies but that were introduced in the game is Thorns' father being brought back from the dead and Amy's voices being freed. Those are two things that we have to pay off. Like I said at the top of the show, I don't know that Thorns' father, that thing is going to pay off, but it's possible that we could incorporate the voices into this upcoming like little denouement kind of like wrap up arc here, right? So those are two things on the board. The other things that are on the board is there was the prophecy of seek the silent whistle. Dell will not be freed until the whippoorwill sings again, right? So that's a big. That prophecy was laid out there, and I feel like that plot element has lain dormant for a long time. The players have not been like asking about this silent whistle. They don't know what it is. They've really lost track of that prophecy altogether, right? So that's that. We're gonna have to like hit them pretty hard with the clue bat in order to bring that back into their awareness, and I think they're going to start working on it immediately once it bubbles back up, right? But they've lost that. There's also a few things that are big but not necessarily prophecies, right? So there's a bunch of like history of the Axebinder family where dad's been turned into a vampire and Hargat has left this place and the son was lost. So there's a lot of mystery, and then now now Thawne has Black Razor, and I really think we need to plan for some sort of role-playing scene where Thawne interrogates Black Razor about what the Book of Thorns is like. Like, how does this dungeon work? So, prophecies and payoffs. Those are things that I don't think we can ignore on our plot radar. Well, speaking of, let's take a look at our plot radar. So, Wave. That's still in the immediate column, right? This is still kind of a big deal. Black Razor is the key, and Garav has become the warden. Let's highlight that a little bit. Ooh, plot radar. Hargat's son, I don't know. They're aware of it, like, but it doesn't seem like they're following up on it. I'm actually going to kind of move this into the distant category, probably. Right? It's now kind of like pushed out. Tax Voices has sort of been closed and retired. I don't know. Same thing with like Bargat. I don't know. This got addressed, right? The book is the Ironkeep's prison. Other areas of the keep. Freeing Dell, we're going to move this up into the immediate category, right? This is their next immediate goal. This prophecy has to come back in the next immediate goal, right? Thon's father is definitely approaching, but I don't think he's there. Other areas of the keep is approaching, not there. The root and stake of the Gulthius tree. I feel like that's maybe sitting out here a little bit more, right? All right. So I think all of this, the rest of this stuff sort of stays where it is. We're not moving too many things around. I almost did a plot vice for this thing because we've got a few elements that we need to like put in a pressure cooker and talk about. But I think we're going to do that in the next session, right? So there's two things here. I'm going to put this pen. I wonder if this pen is running out of juice. No, it's not writing as. All right. So Ava's off-rolled. Avril is on the deck. Black Razor and Thon as the warden is on the deck. The book is the prison is really like these two things are sort of tied together, right? I think all this stuff stays out here. Freeing Dell. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that we said we had to pay off. All right. All right. So that's our plot radar. I think this is kind of enough. This thing could really be combined into is the nature of what is the nature of the Book of Thorns, right? Like this stuff has been established. We can kind of kill it over here. That's fine. We will probably have a scene where Avril and Thon have some disagreement over Thon's decision to become chaotic neutral. What is the nature of the Book of Thorns is really like that is the heart of this next session, right? Because it's the party's immediate lead to follow up on here in terms of where they're going to go with the plot is use Black Razor as the key to enter the prison and go get Dell. So that raises the question of how does the prison work? What's involved? Is there any challenge to freeing Dell from the prison? That sort of brings us to our next topic, right? So Avril's alignment, I don't remember. I'm sure it's chaotic something, probably chaotic good. I don't have a copy of their character sheets, which is always an interesting problem, right? Okay, so this all looks good. I'm getting a little bit of it's a little bit of a red flag for me that not more stuff is not moving, right? We talked about this last time, that these things should really march forward, and you should start closing and retiring stuff and really get the points of your umbrella tied off and closed up, so that there's some resolution to this plot that you're building. But they've been in kind of dungeon crawl explore mode, and they haven't been inclined to find out a lot of history or anything like that. They haven't really been interrogating a lot of people about what's going on. So we need to find different ways to like feed them that info, and that sort of stuff is, how I expect some of this stuff to get tied off. Also, keep in mind, when you're in a dungeon crawl, there's not a ton of opportunities to gain new information and then act upon it. But generally, they have been into just explore and retrieve items, right? Explore, and kind of, actually, they're not explicitly trying to retrieve items. They're just in an explore mode. Divide, go through the area, conquer it, call it good, close it off, move on. They happen to learn some things along the way, but that's been incidental as I've fed it to them. That's not been by the design of the module, right? So part of the reason that Plot Radar isn't moving a whole lot is we've put them into an adventure that doesn't have a lot of plot. It doesn't do a lot of interesting reveals. There are not major actors who are responding to their actions or making their influence felt throughout the dungeon. It's really a very static place set up with a lot of traps that they then go and explore and set off or defeat and recover the items and then go back into a different area, right? See you later. So, oh boss. So that's one of the reasons that Plot Radar has been very static for the past couple of weeks. But I want to I want to make a note of that. Like, we're now out of White Plume Mountain, so let's figure out a way to start turning the gears on these things. Right? All right. Let's go take a look at our last topic today. Is the Book of Thorns, right? So I'm gonna do some brainstorming on this. We've sort of been hinting about it all day long, or sort of referencing it all day long, but not drilling down on it in any detail. So, the Book of Thorns is the prison, right? Mind flayers, you guys. Mind flayers. The Book of Thorns is the prison. And we know that the book is like a field guide, right? It's like a field guide. It's got illustrations of birds in their natural habitat. And it turns out that those birds are probably prisoners. We know that Black Razor is the key, is the warden's key, and that by claiming Black Razor, you become the warden of the prison. We also know that Black Razor was changed / reforged by Bargad when he got turned, and part of Gulthias's essence got into Black Razor, right? I just, sometimes I just make puns without thinking about it. Oh, what is going on, Dirk Portley? So I think our goal here, we know that they're going to use the sword in some fashion to enter the prison and explore it. And I think our goal with this segment is to kind of brainstorm some things that we know about the book and the way that this it's clearly an extra dimensional prison, how that works, right? But I think we also have to my goal here would be to find a way to make the exploration of the dungeon side, the warden's side of the prison, kind of be a contrast or be an interesting kind of dungeon crawly kind of experience, right? Like, the most straightforward thing that can happen is Black Razor allows them to access the book. They go, oh, okay, there's 20 cells here. We find the one with Dell in it and we let her out, right? Like, that's very A to C, done, no challenge to it, it's over, it's finished, right? You know, you could build a session around it's that simple, because we've got other stuff, as evidenced on our plot radar. We've got other stuff to deal with. So we could, we could get there. We don't have to make this a big, long, complicated kind of dungeon crawl experience or whatever, right? Fair enough. But I do think that there should be some sort of challenge to it. I think there should be some kind of twist. There should be something fantastical to it, right? And that's certainly been one of my like guiding principles, especially like running streaming games, is how can I make this aspect of the adventure? How can I make this adventure more fantastical? Make the world even more epic. Bring more magic to bear. Make it more interesting and have it still be canonical D&D, but in a heightened version of it, right? A high fantasy version of the world,